Hey everybody, Jim Ingersoll here with our Zoom call this week. It's April 9th. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in a stay-at-home order here in Virginia. And a lot has changed. 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, we finished up our deal maker. And a lot has changed in 8 weeks. Oh my gosh. I was thinking back because David Phelps talked about like the 2020 and the shift. You guys were there, remember all that? And at the time, everything was so good. The economy was 3.5% unemployment. And some people in the room are like, man, I just don't see anything changing. And then all of a sudden, like out of the blue, we got this black swan event called Corona, right? About 8 weeks ago during Dealmaker, we were all like giving hugs and next to each other before social distancing. Hey, everybody give a virtual high five because that's all we get now. Yes. And so a lot has changed, and I wanted to do this Zoom call to reach out to you guys and talk to you about what you're doing with real estate and life, and hopefully your families are all good. And so I just want to start off with some basic things on Zoom. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. There we go. So you should see my screen. There it is. All right, so a couple things on Zoom here. First of all, there's video options. Now you guys, a lot of you guys already have your video on. Thank you for that, because I mean, we miss each other, right? I mean, I miss a lot of you guys. So you can chat it up in the chat box, say hello to each other, catch up with people like I was just doing. Justin, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's been too long. I need to maybe, after this is over, hook up or go to Colorado or something. Mary Hart, I haven't seen you in 8 weeks. It's good to see you again. And Alicia, you couldn't come to Dealmakers because you just had the baby, for Pete's sakes, right? So you can chat it up in the box. If you want to talk to somebody specific, just do like I did there, at Mary Hart or at Wendy Sweet or at Quincy.
Jim, I've lost your screen. I'm trying to find your screen. My computer's doing weird things.
Okay.
So just bear with me.
And so you can do that. Now you can also do a virtual background, and I'll show you guys how to do that. I got to come back out of Zoom. See in the bottom left-hand corner, the little video camera? Marshall, I should have put like Yankee Stadium behind me because I'm like really missing baseball, but you can click on that camera.
I hear you.
And you can choose a virtual background. So this one is St. Croix. Some of you guys were in St. Croix with me. You can have none. There's my office working on Dealmaker 2021. There's the key to success. Here's me thinking of everybody in New York. New York City is getting slammed. Holy mackerel. And for you guys that are doing Netflix, has anybody seen this guy? Oops, I go this way. What do you think? Joe Exotic, has anybody watched him? Huh? Come on, be truthful now. I have not seen Joe Exotic. Look, I don't even know where to put my head. These are all virtual backgrounds. But
Yes, I have.
What's that? I couldn't hear you. I haven't seen Joe Exotic. Like, you guys know my wife. She is so crazy conservative. She's like, I don't think I could watch that because if I see it, I won't be able to unsee it. You know what I'm saying? So like,
please don't waste your time, Jim. Please don't waste your time.
Craziness, but Cheryl just does not want to watch it. This is a view. This is from Italy. And a couple of things here. There's Positano. So you can have a lot of fun with this. This is when I was in the Alps. So you can create like a virtual background for yourself of how your mood is feeling and all of that. I'm going to stick with this one for today. Network equals your net worth. As you guys know, that's just something I say. Cutter, it's good to see you on here as well. I haven't seen you in a while. Brian, again, if you guys are just signing in, you can change your name to the proper name just by clicking it and going on there. We got a ton of people on. Bob Zachmar, good to see you. Ginger and Ken, oh my gosh, I didn't know you signed in, but it's good to see you guys again. Laura Eubanks, I was talking about you a minute ago because you've had property where taxes went up a lot, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. Did you unmute?
And Nick,
am I muted?
I was saying, like, I think some of the best opportunities to buy right now are from landlords. Number one, landlords that were sort of marginal mom and pop landlords and struggling before this. And now all of a sudden, you know, you got rent strikes and unemployment's jacked way up and all these issues. But Nick brought up the point that taxes have gone up a lot, and you've experienced some of that.
Yeah, I just got some notices today from Hampton, and a lot of those went up. And then back to the point on the rentals, I had an agent, a local agent here, who might actually be on the call, called me. He has eight property portfolio where the landlord says they have to sell immediately. And I said, well, you know, do they just need money? Or are they worried about the market? Like, figure out their pain point and make some more seller finance type stuff, because it's not like you're gonna, even if it's like 50% loan to value all in, I'm having lenders fall out right before closing. So I can't imagine if I brought someone 8 properties to finance, what that would even look like. I just don't, I think lenders are spooked. So if you can work out a seller finance deal where you're not making large payments and you have, you know, enough reserves, it might not be a bad deal, but everyone's just spooked right now. We just got to get through that.
We're going to talk about private lending right off the bat. That is the first thing. I'm just kind of looking through all these screens to see who else is on here. Jessica Steck, good to see you. And Carly Nino, how have you been? Colette, always good to see you. 2 days in a row also. All right, so a lot's going on. And if you guys are just signing in and you signed in with my link and my name shows up, just click the name and change it along the way. Thomas, I like that background. Are you fishing?
That is the South Holston River. That's my happy place, about 20 minutes from my house.
Are you fly fishing?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's what my brother Bill loves to do. He'll like that. See? I knew it. Awesome. Lindy Pond, good to see you again as well. Ford and everyone else. All right, so chat it up in the box. Like I said, if you want to say hello to somebody, just do it like this. Like that. Oh, I forgot the O at the end of that, Mary. I didn't mean to say hell, but you can just sort of do it like that and say hello to each other because, like, I miss so many of you guys. Alicia, I didn't see you at Dealmaker. It's wonderful to see you. Justin, I haven't seen in a long time. Cutter, I haven't seen in a while. So it's really good to be hanging out with you guys. And I just want to talk through what we can do today and what opportunities we should be aware of and where I think some deals are going to be coming from. I've already revealed that. I think it's from Landlords is a good one. But we're going to talk through, I want to talk about private lending. I want to talk about rentals, both regular rentals and short-term rentals too. I want to talk a little bit about flips and wholesaling as well. How is your local retail market? Chat it in the box there and tell us. By the way, at the end of this, you can save the chat box if you want by clicking the 3 little buttons next to it. I can tell you, like, our local market is really hot still on the retail side, but I've been talking with mortgage brokers and letting people to do mortgages, and the incoming volume of applications are down. Lindy, are you seeing that as well? Or anyone else who does mortgages? Yeah, no, you're good. So like right now, it's really good. Like every flip, every property that we put out there sells really quick. And it looks like it is for most of you guys as well. I sold one last week in a couple of days. My brother Bill, who's on with us, listed one just a few days ago, and it sold within 24 hours. So it's still really good, but the way that I'm kind of gauging this is by talking to the mortgage brokers. And because the FHA guidelines changed, you've got to have a higher credit score now. You guys have seen that. Also for conventional. So like the underwriting has changed a little bit. Also, some commercial banks right now are so inundated doing PPP loans that they've stopped commercial lending for the moment. For instance, like Town Bank is a big one in the Central Virginia area. Right now, unless you've got a really strong relationship with Town Bank, they won't do refis for you, for instance. So you got to watch that because all this lending stuff is changing, guidelines, underwriting. Lori brought up about private lending a second ago, and so on. That's why it's really important. It's a great time if you're buying rentals to go after that seller financing. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here. Okay, so this is my information. In case you don't know me, I know many of you very well, but I've got a podcast called Real Estate Investor Success. I've got a Facebook group called Real Estate Investor Success. And really, my Facebook group is growing very fast. We're adding 100 people, I think, every 5 or 6 days now. And that's really the easiest and most active way to connect with me if you've got questions at this point. I just want to go through a couple things on mindset. I think success, especially in the middle of a crisis or a pandemic, is really a great opportunity. But your mindset during this period of time is more important than ever before. And I would say the same is true for your network. Our world has a lot more problems right now. You guys all know that. Our market is going to have more challenges coming up. And the question is, how are you going to help solve them? Are you positioned to solve them at all? I mean, how are you going to do that? So, you know, I already gave the Joe Exotic background. You guys like that. I haven't seen it, but it seems like everyone else has. And so are you watching like TV constantly? Netflix? What are you guys binge watching? By the way, I did watch The Stranger last week on Netflix, and it is very captivating. I'm not into binge watching TV, but The Stranger was hard to turn off, to be honest with you. So that's one of my Netflix giveaways for today. The Stranger was pretty cool. The news, I mean, you get these coronavirus updates every day. I mean, doesn't it get to be too much and so much negative stuff? So the question is, what are you reading? What are you listening to? And what are you grateful for? Put it into the chat box. And there's so much chat stuff coming in, I'm gonna have to save it and read it later too. Hey, some people have been asking me what I'm reading. I'm reading 3 books right now because I have more time, man. I'm home way more often. I'm managing my job sites differently than I did before coronavirus. I'm not going on site as often. Anyways, one book is called Upstream. Upstream is sort of like a Malcolm Gladwell book. Have you guys read Malcolm Gladwell? Sort of reminds me of that type of thing. It's not a business book. It's about figuring out like what is the root cause of a massive problem and figuring out how to solve it. Like addiction for teenagers in Iceland or whatever, all these crazy examples. So I'm reading that. I'm also reading Stories That Stick that Wendy Sweet recommended during Dealmaker. And I'm listening to a book on Audible called How Happiness Happens by Max Lucado. Max Lucado is probably my favorite faith-based author. So I'm listening to that on Audible, and I'm also rereading the story, which is like the Bible in chronological order. So I'm doing quite a bit of reading and listening. Podcasts, my favorite podcast continues to be How I Built This by Guy Raz. Have you guys watched that one or listened rather? I really like that a lot. And of course, I'm still podcasting, but I can't listen to my own. I do not like watching myself on video or listening to myself on audio, or even really talking about myself in general. All right, so everything we need to like get over fear and get our mindset right and be ready to make deals is on the Zoom call today. There are tons of people on this thing. Now, everybody's sort of in different lanes. We got some people that are active income. You know, you might be a realtor, you might be a broker, you could do, you know, single family, you might be a commercial broker, who knows? You might be a wholesaler and living on your assignment fees. You might be somebody who flips houses, or you might be all of those. Maybe you do. I've got friends who are all of those. They're a realtor, they're a wholesaler, they collect assignment fees, and they flip. And then maybe you're on the passive side. So maybe you're a private lender, maybe you've built a rental portfolio, and maybe you're a note investor. So I want to talk about like all of those to some degree today and talk through what the challenges are and then try to take your questions. So the first one is private lending. Mary Hart, can you unmute? Is Wendy Sweet on? If Wendy is on, could you unmute also? I'm not sure if she is.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Yeah, you sound good.
Thanks.
So you're in Gravel Switch, Kentucky.
Yes.
A beautiful place. You and Frank are enjoying your hot tub like I am. right?
The hot tub has been nice. Yes, I threw out my back, so it's been very helpful.
Cheryl did too, so that's perfect. I love it. It really helps my arthritis so much, and it's beautiful weather for it, so it's been really good. But I want to talk about private lending a little. Let's talk about this from both perspective of borrower and from the perspective of the lender. So let's start off with lender. If you're a private lender and you've had deals that started before COVID-19, and what should you be doing with those deals right now?
Are you asking me, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think a couple things. For me, I did have loans going on where I was a lender, am still a lender. And the first thing I did was sort of assess where I am with that. You know, do I need that cash flow for eat money? Is it something that I have enough cash to, if my borrowers get strapped, that I can help them out and delay some interest payments, or where am I on the loan? So I sort of assessed that first. And then I think that it's, so far all mine have been paying, and I've got several that are going to closing pay off. So I haven't had to really do too much with my borrowers yet. But I think that it's important to communicate. If you're a borrower and you need help, contact your lender. And if you're a lender and you're in a position to help a struggling borrower, then try to do that. But I think you have to assess what your needs are and communicate with the other party, and try to make it a win-win situation for everybody to the best of your ability.
And I think that's a great point. I think it's an important time to communicate. So like, and I'm glad you said that. So as a lender, if you've got people that are on draws and you're local and you're used to going to the job site to do your inspections, you know, there's a risk factor from being in groups of people right now, right? So how would you handle that? I'm just thinking this through. Or you're remote anyway, so how do you handle getting progress?
Right. I pretty much always lend remotely. So if I need to see a job site, then I want somebody to go over with a video camera, you know, have the borrower go with, while social distancing from everybody else, the borrower can always take their phone and go do a walkthrough with a video, do FaceTime, you know, something like that. And I think you can do that without having to get together with groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And some
and
of
if you
you
do
guys
it live, like on FaceTime, you can ask questions as you go. Like if I'm watching a video, I could ask a question if I saw something I wanted to know more about.
Yeah.
It's a live call.
So it does get a little more challenging. And what kind of communication would you expect from your borrowers as they go through? Are you anticipating maybe some delays in construction because, you know?
Well, I would, yeah, you know, I'm fortunate in the sense that the loans that I had out, a lot of them had just paid off, and a couple of them are in the process of closing, and it looks like they're still going to go to closing. But in terms of communication, I would expect that if a borrower is struggling, I would certainly want them to contact me, and let's have a phone call and see where things are. I can imagine that construction is slowing down, although according to what I hear in my community, Lowe's is still packed. I don't get it, but anyway, so maybe it's not slowing down. I guess it depends on where you are and how seriously people are taking the social distancing. But you know, definitely communicate with your lender if you're a borrower. You know, I've probably been a little slack because I've been lying around on the floor with my back for the last 6 days, so I haven't done much of anything. But I probably should reach out to my borrowers and make sure that they're okay. But I was kind of going on the assumption that no news is good news, but I don't want them to feel like they're scared to call me. So I'll probably reach out, make sure everybody's doing okay. If you've got loans that are going to pay off, realize that you're probably going to have some delays. You know, attorneys' offices are social distancing, title companies, things like that. So I know that some of our loans have gotten pushed back a little bit. Looks like they're still going to close, but you know, reach out, find out if you're close to payoff. Is that still going to happen? If it's not going to happen, why? Is there anything you can do to help? Are you in a position as a lender to help? Is it just a matter of there's not enough personnel and it's just going to take a little longer? You know, just communicate.
That communication is so critical, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I think that it's human nature to assume the worst. So So that's why I think I need to reach out, because I've been assuming that everybody's doing fine because they haven't called me, but maybe they think I'm not going to take it well if they're struggling and they're scared to reach out. So, just remember, human nature, unfortunately, is to assume the worst. So, be that person that reaches out.
Yeah, and I'm glad and those are good points. And construction can slow down a little bit because, like, for me, I can't pile in like 20 people into a property and have them go at it right now, inside and out. So you got to be careful for everybody managing rehabs right now. You've got to be, and my brother Bill's been doing a good job with this too. Bill, can you unmute real quick? I don't know if you can, let me try to unmute you. Can you hear me, Bill? All right, say something. Oh, I can't hear you. Your mic's not working, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. You and I have talked a little bit about this, and you've done a really good job, I think, managing your rehabs without like throwing the normal amount of people that we would into these jobs. So, you have any tips on that side?
Sure. They really appreciate you, first of all, have an interest in their well-being and being concerned. So it's kind of tough if you're getting into a really deep rehab, but some basics. I really want to keep some water going. I want to have some dish soap up there to wash their hands. By the way, that works fine. I want to try to keep a toilet going. Initially on the start of jobs, it's kind of hard because you have roofs going on, you have windows, but I'm trying to sort of put one crew in there, or if guys are okay working with others. So you might have a roofing crew mostly outside, and maybe a couple guys inside, and even then, I'm just anticipating that it's going to add. Jim and I both do rehabs very fast. We're competitive that way, and so what if it takes another week or two, okay, to spread some guys out, and they really appreciate it. The one I just finished up, one contractor, let's say he had 3 guys. He'd already worked with Dan, who Jim knows, electrician. I'm asking them, hey, are you feeling okay? I want to make sure you're okay, out of respect. They appreciate that. So then Dan was good to go in with them. And, that's pretty much it. Just spread it out a little bit. If you're really trying to manage a job for ultimate speed, and you're really putting it down in a calendar, and you got guys outside, you got guys inside, there's a point where you can really do it very efficiently without slowing the job down. If you overpack it too much, it eventually is going to slow the job down, whether there's a virus out there or not. So just, show them respect. It's really coming back. They really like it. That's all.
Yep. I agree. All right. Well, thank you. And so the speed as you get through these things, Mary, can vary a little bit. Right now, it's a little more challenging. And I think that communication is critical. So if many of the people on the call today, you're either a private lender or you're a borrower or you're both. Okay, I've been both. So many of us are also both. I guess, Mary, your point is like, if you're a borrower, don't bury your head in the sand, pull it out and talk to your lender right now. And just give some updates.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've got to find out what your lender can do. Are they in a position to forego a few months of payments? Can they, waive some of the interest? Who knows what they can do? But I would say you'll never know if you don't reach out unless they reach out to you. But definitely call your lender. Don't stick your head in the sand. Don't be scared. It's the worst thing you can do is to not communicate your actual needs. We're not mind readers, right? We can't read your mind. So like I said, I've been assuming everything's going great because I haven't heard anything from my lenders, but taking my own advice, I need to reach out to everyone and make sure.
Ellie, I love seeing your daughter there. That is awesome. And so many people are working from home. And so I think that's good. Mary, I think I would recommend everybody on the Zoom today, at the end of this, just text or call your lender, say hello. And you don't even have to, relationships are our biggest asset right now. And that relationship with your private lender is critical. Just reach out to them and ask, is everybody at your house? How is everybody? Like, legitimately care. And then later in the conversation, you could say, just so you know, all my jobs are going as scheduled, everything's moving forward. The other, we didn't talk about permits, but permits with the cities around the country right now are really tough too. And some areas you can do third-party inspections, some you can't. It's a whole nother thing that creates delays. So just everybody be aware of that as well, and communicate, I think, is absolutely critical. I want to talk about rates and LTVs a little too, Mary. I've gone back to some of my private lenders and I've actually negotiated my rates down. So there was one in particular, I was at 10%, we moved down to 8%. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but in some cases, like, unless they're going to take the wild ride on the roller coaster of Wall Street, where else are they going to earn money right now? They put it into a CD. Before long, banks are going to be at negative interest rates, in my opinion. So yeah. I'm not saying to do that necessarily. And then also be aware of what those loan to values are. I think if I'm lending money today, I want there to be a little bit better spread than I would have 6 months ago. Do you agree with that common sense, Mary?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you need to be, as a lender, I want to be more protected with the lower LTV right now, because I don't know what's going to happen to people's ability to buy houses in, 2 months. I don't know what's going to go on. So, that's why I think the borrowers and the lenders really need to work together, because we need to make this a win-win for everybody and the ultimate home buyer, right? If the borrower can negotiate lower rates and pay less, then they could sell it at a lower price if they had to, right? So I think this is
I haven't started talking about like making offers yet, but I mean, when you're looking forward to what ARVs always look backwards at comps, right? And they were really high. Allie, your husband's an appraiser. Like appraisals are still coming in pretty high, correct, Allie? Corey will tell you. But what will they be 6 months from now?
Little bit.
What's that? Having a little audio.
I said, yeah, they are. That hasn't. Is it not working?
No, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It is. They're staying about the same, but I think it will change. I mean, it'll definitely change if this keeps going on.
Mm-hmm.
Much further.
So when you're making offers today and you know that it's going to take 60 days to do your rehab, or God forbid if you're doing like a development type project where you're doing an addition or something big and it's going to take 6 months or a year, the comps 6 to 12 months from now may be different than they are today. They might be less. How many of you guys think they could be less than 6 to 12 months? Raise your hand. It's unknown, you know what I mean? So I think being conservative, to Mary's point right now, and trying to make sure everybody's well protected in these deals is critical. Like, especially on the West Coast, people were buying stuff at like 85% of ARV, right? And in the Midwest, they've always been pretty good, but even on the East Coast, people were creeping that thing up 80, 85%. And I think right now, if you want to protect yourself, be conservative on the ARV and make sure that you've got a good percentage built in. So you protect yourself and your private lender, right, Mary?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. So anybody else with there's so much chat information. I usually follow it. Lori said one of hers fell through. It's a good time to build that network, Lori. It's a good time to have more than one private lender, guys, honestly.
Jim?
Yes.
Jim, this is Cutter. I just want to add that I believe, like Mary said, communication is key. I mean, I'm talking to our JV guys weekly. We're talking to our builders weekly, because I do lending.
Yeah.
And so and I borrow money also. So I've called my borrowers, some of them on the West Coast, and same thing. Oh, I was so worried. I didn't want to call you. I'm so grateful you reached out. So again, I just want to reiterate what Mary said, that communication is key.
So Cutter, like myself, you went all the way through the downturn and you remember the opportunities that we had several years back, right?
correct, I do.
Do you, based on the economics that you're sort of seeing, nobody has a crystal ball, but do you think some of those are going to come back to us?
I think so. I mean, I think that my belief is that we're going to see prices soften a little bit, and then I believe that they're going to go up, and there will be a selling opportunity. And then I think towards the end of the year, the election, that potentially prices are going to come back down. And foreclosures, right now no one can foreclose. And then let's say with banks, it'll take them time to process that once they're allowed. So I think we're 12 months maybe from seeing, maybe 18 from seeing the biggest opportunities.
Okay, thank you. It's nice catching up with you guys. So I want to talk a little bit about deal flow, okay? So that's private lending. If you guys have more questions, chat about it or whatever is good. Is this format, like I've never had this many people on a Zoom call? Is it all okay? There's so much chatting, I can't keep up with it. I'm gonna have to go back and read it later. I want to talk about, we started talking a little bit about making offers and making better offers. Your cash offers, I think, need to be deeper. I think personally, you should not exceed like a 70% loan to value right now. If you're buying apartments, you should be able to get a little better cap rate, in my opinion. And if you're used to buying houses for your rental portfolio at a 1% rule, then you should be able to get up to around, say, 1.25 or 1.5. I do think it's a great market for seller financing. It's always a good market for options, by the way. But if you're doing cash, then I would go really low. And I see, I got to look through who's on here real quick. Whoops. And I do think there's going to be opportunities also for subject to deals. Michael Jake, are you on? Did I see you on here?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, awesome. Good. One of my favorite dudes. Awesome. Colorado. So I can't find you. There's so many Zoom squares in my thing here, but I know what I can do. I can put you on speaker view. There we go. How you doing?
I'm great.
So
rolling with the punches out here.
You and I have both been through the downturn all the way through. And in the last swing of things, man, you did a better job with subject to deals than anybody I've met in my entire life. Do you think some of those opportunities will be coming back?
Yeah, unquestionably. I mean, I don't know. I mean, nobody's got a crystal ball. Nobody knows how this is going to play out. I mean, right now, government is telling people, if you can't make your mortgage payments, don't. I don't know how people are expected to get caught up. You look at stats like 63% of the American population can't solve a $1,000 cash problem in their life. And there's definitely overlap with the amount of homeowners out there. I've done a lot of sub twos, and it's predominantly because that's the fruit on the trees in my market here. I'm in Colorado Springs, and there's 5 military installations here, and they move them in and out, move them in and out, move them in and out. But there's going to be some people that need help, but they've postponed military moves during this. So again, I don't know how it's going to impact. We are working on 3 deals right now. They're all 3% loans, where we're taking over payments and getting people out that need to get out. 2 of them were leads that were not all that motivated before this mess started, and now they're pretty motivated. So now the big hiccup is yesterday the governor said no show. I'm trying to paraphrase from what my realtor told me. We had a couple of houses we were putting on the market. He's like, yeah, I can't get out and take pictures now. So if we can't do pictures or videos, do you want to list it or do you not want to list it? The prior, you couldn't go show a house unless you had a contract. So people were doing Matterport videos and things like that to get a contract. And then once it was under contract, then you could go inspect. But now they've kind of kiboshed that. So we'll see how it goes.
You guys, are you in a stay-at-home order like we are in Virginia, or what's sort of your level?
Yeah, but real estate has been considered essential. But now they're kind of plucking away little bits and pieces of that as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to list your houses?
No, we're just gonna wait.
I mean, it's a hard decision, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, technically, the realtors, which are licensed, and when DORA, Department of Regulatory Agencies, is telling them don't go to a house, what do? They probably don't want to go to a house. So if you, he's like, if you have somebody else that can go take pictures, we can use those. We're just going to kind of hold off at this point and see how it goes. I mean, I think I'm right now, as of now, I'm planning on another month. They've extended our stay at home, at least in Denver, till the end of the month. They haven't in the Springs yet, but I'm sure we're going to follow suit. And if you look at all the charts, that's kind of right about when the peak is supposed to hit.
Yeah.
So if the peak is hitting, then they're going to extend it longer. So I think they're just kind of they're laying breadcrumbs as we go. They don't want to tell us it's going to be a month and a half. They just want to give us in 2 weeks increments so we don't, nobody riots.
Yeah, like 15 days of separation, right? And then it went to 30. Yeah. I hear you. So you've been doing this a long time. Are you ready for another crack at some really good deals?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've spent the last couple of years kind of getting ready, and we were kind of like, well, I don't know where it's coming from, and then here it is. All the indicators just were kind of all green at kind of right before this. So, we got ourselves positioned well, and I had a conversation with a local financial friend this week, and she's kind of anxious to get out and do deals, and I said, I don't even know if she got the reference, but I said that, we're just starting the smorgasbord line. We're still at the salad and the bread. We haven't seen the steak yet, so don't be too anxious to run in there. The deals will get better, and don't allocate all your resources too early inside the curve here. But patience is sometimes.
Well, I've got you on talking to me, which is great to catch up. Talk to me a little bit about being a landlord right now, because we can't do evictions. We also, people with notes can't foreclose right now. How are you managing through your portfolio this month, and what do you think May will look like?
Probably worse than April. April was pretty solid, better than anticipated. We've had a few tenants. We have at least one where both the breadwinners in the house have COVID and are on quarantine. Some we've gotten some partial payments, but the bulk of our rent roll came in. We are on David Tilney's forum for his master leasing and management class, and he sent out a good email that's like, just communicate. We're in this together. It was my wife wrote the email. She's a lot more touchy-feely, but it is, our tenants are our assets, and without them, none of this stuff works as far as being a landlord. So, I'm glad it's not 2007 all over again. I was a whole lot more leveraged at that point. I'm glad I'm, paid off a lot of properties at this point, and can kind of absorb the impact. But it was definitely not something I think any of us saw, where government steps in and says, hey, it's okay not to pay rent, and we can't kick you out. So it's a brave new world.
Or pay your mortgage.
Right. Well, and I mean, that's I think the weird risk with doing subject to deals is that, how are you supposed to go and renegotiate other people's loans for non-payment? I don't know if that's really an option. I mean, we've been at this a while, and we've been pretty blessed, and we're good to make those payments even without the rent roll for quite a while. But if you're new to the game and you're not very liquid, I would be very hesitant.
I think cash reserves are critical, but this thing dropped in so quick. 8 weeks ago, we were finishing up our deal maker. You were skiing with John Schaub 8 weeks ago, man.
Yeah.
I remember. And then just like the black swan, just like boom. And here we are.
Yeah.
Tenants have incentive not to pay rent. Like if they don't want to pay rent, you can't evict them. And then I don't know in Colorado, but we have rent strike groups forming where they almost
Yeah.
want to like unionize as tenants and come together collectively. It's crazy.
Our St. Louis portfolio definitely was affected by that. That's where it all started, with St. Louis.
Did you have tenants, Justin, that said like, I'm going on rent strike?
So we were proactive also, and we sent out notices to single family mobile home parks, every asset that we owned, that basically said, we understand this is a tough time, but if you do not pay your rent, we are going to require documentation of COVID, loss of income, loss of job, all that type of stuff. And I think that delayed a lot of people from just not paying because, and so obviously the people that had true cases, obviously we're taking care of them, making sure that we're doing what we can. But I think to Michael's point, there's proactivity that I think helped us get out of that, because across the board, some of our property managers in St. Louis had a much higher non-payment rate than we did, for sure.
Hey, since I've got you on, you've also got a large note business, Justin, and right now you can't foreclose on notes either. So what's your take on note business going forward here in the short term?
Well, it was interesting. You know, we kind of, like a lot of people probably, we were building models and doing the what if scenarios and trying to think about, you know, how does this affect the notes? How does it affect single family? How does it affect our mobile home parks? And trying to just build different models for this month and next month. And we said 80% rent received in our rental portfolio. And we thought we'd be about 90% in our note portfolio. And it was the other way around, actually. Our notes actually performed a little bit lighter than I was expecting, and our rent was a little bit higher than I expected. So, and these are everything from C-class properties to nice properties, mostly long-term debt, not hard money loans like some of the other people were talking about. So that was interesting to see a little bit of a flip of what I anticipated. I think there's enough people out there saying loans are basically forbearance, or, you know, there's loan modifications and stuff like that. And so people just think that's across the board, which, you know, again, we'll have to comply and do the best. But
well, you're in position where you could do that easier. I've seen some banks, I think John Morey was the first one who told me this, but some banks that are doing this, like saying you don't have to make payments for 3 months. And then in the month 4, like the whole thing is doing like a balloon, 4 months of payments.
Yeah.
Yes, I did tell you that. And that's the bad thing. Every bank actually does things differently.
Yeah.
So you have to really talk to your bank specifically, right, and say, what does forbearance mean to you? So they need to explain that to you.
I mean, that's going to create foreclosures.
This is Kathy Del Sesto. Whoops, sorry about that, Jim. It's Kathy Del Sesto. I read an article in the newspaper that says the federal government is forcing the banks to do a year of forbearance without paying it back. They'll just tack on a year at the end of the loan. And the bank may suggest to you that you will have to pay everything back in a lump sum, but according to the federal government, that's not allowed. So you have to know that and tell the bank. And you have to ask every 3 months to get the year's forbearance. So 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 4 times.
Wow. I can't imagine not like making mortgage payments for a year. Justin, and then I see Jenny and Levi are on too. You guys do a lot with notes. What do you guys think of all this?
So as far as hi everyone.
Hey, it's good to see you again. It's been too long.
So one thing that's kind of been going through my head, listening to everybody talk, we work in the non-performing space all the time. And so just reiterating what everybody else has already said about the communication, it's even on a normal day without a pandemic, it's really hard to get people to get their head out of the sand when they're in trouble. And so it does take a lot of effort on your side to talk with your borrowers or your tenants or whoever it is, and really make them feel like they have options, because if you let it sit, they won't reach out to you. Just a fact of whether it's they're ashamed of whatever's happening or they're scared you'll say no. A million other reasons. It's really important for you to reach out and let them know that you're there to talk and work things out with them.
So how is your no business doing through all this, Jenny and Levi? I mean, how's it going?
We're still receiving payments
Good.
pretty strongly. We did liquidate some of our assets right before this. Our apartment complex finally sold that we were partnered in, and then we sold a few notes that we knew coming into a downturn, we might as well get a premium for them now.
Mm-hmm. You timed that nicely, didn't you?
Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You really timed that nicely, Levi. Good job.
Couple of weeks ago, we set up a program with our servicers for anybody that called in, kind of a game plan. One, we ask for actual proof of a COVID loss because we wanted to go ahead and just preempt those people that like to play the system, unfortunately.
Nobody plays the system.
We've got one that we counted it up yesterday. She's going to get at least like 9 months of free rent by the time it's all over with, because it hit just perfect. We were already in the eviction process, and then COVID hit. She's having a heyday. But yeah, we went ahead and set up a program for our borrowers to do the forbearance, but kind of what was being talked about a few minutes ago, you have to be in the details. And it's hard enough. I mean, we're all in the real estate industry, and we're sitting here going, okay, what does this mean? What does this word mean? What's the timeline? And we're having to work out, do you have to make all your payments at 4 months? Do you have to request again? General people have no idea that it's so complicated. And so I really feel for the borrowers that are calling into the big banks trying to get help, because they don't know that you have to call every 3 months, and they don't know that the loan officers can't coach them into asking for an additional extension. And so when we set up our program, I tried to be overly explicit in all of our details, and I actually had to help our servicers understand. We had a conversation. I thought it was all figured out. They sent an email to me explaining what they heard. They did not hear it right. And so we had to go back and forth a couple times in email to make sure that I did bullet points, and I said, if this, then that, if this, then that, and set out the timelines and exactly what they were supposed to convey to the borrowers, because there's so many details that need to be handled.
Okay, and so do you think, like, when we're finally past this mess and we're like, on the slope down and things sort of return and open back up, and so do you think your business will have a lot more opportunity to buy non-performing notes at some point?
Yeah, I anticipate it to be about 8 months out when we see a big surge.
That's kind of what I think it was, Marshall. I think you were saying like 8 to 12 months as well. Yeah, at some point that all these people that aren't making payments, or and maybe, unemployment went up millions of people again today. So yeah. If it was at 10% last week, I don't know what the new rate will be this week, but it's significant.
Well, and with the bill they passed, a lot of people will be making more money on unemployment.
I'm
so
glad
the
you said that.
They'll sit there and can't find employee or anyone to work, and the businesses will start going under. And then by the time the unemployment runs out, there won't be as many jobs available because so many businesses went out of business. And then those people will be up a creek. So we'll just
yeah, I think I read they can make up close to $800 a week on unemployment. So what's the incentive to go back to work, right?
I've got one of my 1099 employee or 1099 people that work for me that actually just told me he quit working and doing any reported income because he's actually getting close to a $70 or $80 a week increase being on unemployment with the stimulus, and then he's just doing his side work off the books.
Unreal, isn't it, Thomas?
Oh, it's insane. The we've actually got a letter going out to 3 problem tenants that we inherited, and it's going out today pending owner review, but basically giving them the option of, look, you can walk away from the rental agreement right now. We will not hound you for debt. We just want you out of the building, because we're looking at 3 to 6 months to not be able to evict them.
Yep.
So what we're doing is, we're looking at the fact that they're getting stimulus money in their pockets. They're getting unemployment money in their pocket. Take it and run. Get out of my place.
I like the way you said it. Take it and run. Get out of my place. That's pretty cool. Hey, Dave Fernecki, if you're able to unmute, I'd like to talk to you real quick about notes as my last person here. Justin, you said Portland is trying to make rent waived a piece of law. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you read, I posted the article in there if anyone wants to look at it, but they're trying to make it so that you don't have to pay rent, and by law, it has to be forgiven, not just postponed or payment plan or something else. Obviously, not to get on a political train, but that's a very politically left state. But
It is.
so I don't foresee that going to every state. But interesting article if you want to read it. I posted it in the chat there.
Awesome. And Rudy Willis, I didn't realize you were in San Jose, Rudy, but if you could unmute, tell me what's going on there, would be very interesting as well. Check that article also. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. As far what I'm seeing is several things. One, the non-QM lending is gone except for one provider, one lender. There's a large lender in California. They shut their doors 2 weeks ago. They had 270 employees. They're down to 20. They got a $200 million portfolio. They still want to get par.
Wow.
And the guy said, I've only got 10 million in reserves, so I can't take less than 95%. Said, okay, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
But he's in total denial. Several others are just halting. There was a sale, I think about 2 weeks ago. They sold at 80% of UPB, their whole portfolio. So it's coming. It's coming really well. As far as myself, I've sent letters out to all my borrowers, telling them about the CARES Act and for their employers, and maybe help them that way. Also, I've sold several partials, and additionally, I've sent letters to some of the people with low balances, offering them a discount.
Good idea.
Yeah, 10, 15% discount just to cash it out. So we'll see. But as far as values,
I need to be borrowing from you. I would take that option.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, if I'm gonna flip the note, I'm giving it, selling at 90 or 85% of UPB anyway. So why not? What's the difference?
It's a good
But
point.
it's a matter of getting cash and just having it ready to go.
It's a great option. Thanks for sharing that. I love
Sure.
it. Congrats on everything, Rudy. You're in good position. I know you are. So let's see. Who else? Did I see Brian Rhodes is on here? Brian, if you're on, can you unmute real quick? How many of you guys are doing PPP loans? Is one of the questions I had. And how many people are confused by the opportunities of PPP loans would be another thing I would ask, because to me, it is very confusing. And I've sat through quite a few webinars. I mean, Jeff Watson, John Hart, great people, but all of this stuff is a little bit confusing. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was wholesaling. If anybody wants to talk to me about wholesaling a little bit, if you're a wholesaler, I'd like to talk to you, just unmute yourself. But I think wholesalers in the past year or 2 years have been able to operate in a pretty lazy mode. By lazy, I mean easy. What they were doing is they would look at how much the as-is comps in a general area were selling for, and they knew they could get that same amount. They'd negotiate with a motivated seller, and they were very confident they could get that same amount. So I saw, you guys like Simon Sinek? He's another author I like. He said recently, he's got a great YouTube channel. He said recently that it's no longer time for an entrepreneur to be lazy. So none of us can be lazy right now. I mean, we've got to be ready to roll. And so I was thinking about that from the wholesaler perspective, because it's so easy to just look at the comps of what the houses have sold as is in the past few months, and then negotiate with the seller for the gap. And they would try to hit like a $20,000 assignment, and they were confident they could move it because investors have been paying too much in the last year, in my opinion. I think investors, marginal investors that are not professional investors that are trying to flip like they do on HGTV, or just not understanding the fundamentals of real estate and how much they can pay for a house, those guys are going to drop out, because like we were talking about from the financing side, financing is going to be a little more stringent on the underwriting, in my opinion, okay? So I think if somebody's been paying 80% and they don't even understand what that means, when they go to do their next deal, the lender is going to push back and just say, hey, I'm not going to do this deal at 80, 85% anymore. So I think the people paying too much for properties is going to drop down, which is going to force wholesalers to negotiate deeper and create better deals for people that want to buy a deal right now. So if you're a wholesaler and you agree or you totally disagree with that, I understand. But if you want to talk about it, you can. John, John Morey, I want to talk to you about that topic. What do you think about that?
Yes. Well, you know, I'm in a different market in Alabama. We're a little bit different, especially the clientele that I deal with. What you said is actually true, especially in Huntsville, because it's way overpriced in Huntsville. When investors call me, hey, I want to invest in Huntsville, I tell them, where were you 2 or 3 years ago? Everything's super high in Huntsville and Madison. But if you're on the outskirts, like I like to do a secondary and tertiary market, the wholesalers are still getting deep discounts that way. It's going to get better right now because people are just going to want to dump their properties. So you're right.
So I think it's going to force wholesalers to create better deals if they're going to survive. I'll tell you, I know several of you guys went through the entire down cycle last time. I did. So I started investing in 2006. And what I saw is many wholesalers went out. They just went out. They couldn't do deals back then. Myself, I transitioned from a wholesaler to buying rental property and flipping. I mean, you guys know, some of you guys know, I wholesaled over 100 houses 2 years in a row. But that was like 2006, 2007. Nobody asks, like, what did you do in 2008? Well, it wasn't wholesaling. So you better be a little bit nimble and be ready to change some things up pretty quick. Anyway.
Hey, Jim, quick strategy maybe for people if they're looking for one. You know, keep an eye on those wholesale deals that people are sending out, because a lot of those contracts are going to bust. And so, you know, if you go back in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, you know, the wholesaler had $20,000 baked into that for him. Plus now the seller's more motivated. So all of a sudden, you know, that deal might make sense for, let's say, $30,000 less. So definitely keep an eye on those, or keep a running list of those wholesale deals that people are trying to put out there, because that could be an opportunity here in the next month, just as a strategy if people want it.
I'm already seeing some better deals come through. Justin, are you still following deals? Are you seeing them start to improve?
I am. You know, the last week it's definitely slowed to a trickle. So I think there was kind of better deals, but then who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, which I think a lot of those deals aren't going to close and will be available. So.
And I think it's going to force people out of like this daisy chain thing too, where people are like, I don't know how many times over the last year, like I see somebody send me a deal and then a second person sends it to me at 5,000 more. And then a third person sends me the same deal at 5,000 more. It's like, I think some of that stuff's going to naturally sort of go away. I certainly hope so, because that's like illegal. They shouldn't be doing that. So anyways, thanks for sharing.
Hey, Jim.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Jim. Good. I'm down here in the Raleigh, North Carolina market, and I noticed in the past couple of years, a lot of new wholesalers had entered the market. They started basically shotgunning deals, getting anything and everything under contract and just firing out deals every week. You know, a lot of the deals that I was working on, I've noticed, you know, I would see an email the next day and it was, you know, being sent out there. I think a lot of them are going to exit, and they have exited. The other thing in the Raleigh market is that the iBuyers like Knock, Open Doors, Zillow, Redfin, they've exited. So one of the biggest problems that I noticed in my market was market saturation. You had too many people doing the same thing, too many real estate investors chasing the same nickel. And just to be competitive, I found myself having to bid aggressively, sometimes too aggressively, but I was bailed out by appreciation.
Yeah.
And multiple offer situations. Now I have a couple of flips going on now, and my realtor has told me, you know, no more multiple offer situations. You may have to pay some closing costs. You're going to get asking price based on comps. And the thing is now, since showings are down, we really need COVID market data. We need to know what's selling during the stay-at-home order, which we don't have yet. But I did start in around 2006, and I did notice through that whole recession, you know, like lease option strategies were great. But the thing is that the cost of sale for the investors was higher. You had to pay closing costs. You know, it was longer times to sell since the banks were reluctant to get anything done. They got deliberately slow. So I think the holding times are going to increase, and I think seller paid closing costs are going to be more and more. You know, more and more frequent, and sellers are going to have to start to compete to get buyers in the door. You know, and then you have new construction where they're just free everything as long as you come and you buy from us. You know, free TVs and appliance packages and all that stuff. So,
Mike, I'm happy to finally like see you face to face, because like for years we've interacted and I don't think I've ever in person. So this is pretty awesome. So, are you going to do anything different with your flips as we progress through 2020? Just be more careful. What are you going to do?
I'm going to avoid the flips that require lots of project management, lots of construction. You know, I'm not going to be tearing apart bathrooms and kitchens anymore. I like that the flip that I have going on now is cosmetic. It's carpet, it's paint, it's landscaping. My realtor can schedule everything, and basically I'm just paying the invoices. Also, I have a few local lenders that loan me money through their IRAs. They're not charging me any kind of points. It's just a flat interest rate, and there's no balloon on it, so that if worse came to worse, you know, I could put, since it's a quality property, under that $250,000 price point, you know, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, under 1,500 square feet, I could always get a lease option tenant in there, pay off the interest, or start making interest payments, and then maybe sell up an option so I could recover some cash. And, you know, if I'm not spending more than $15,000 on repairs, it's not the end of the world.
Yep,
So,
really, those I think are good points. I'm not going to do anything that I have to, I'm trying to avoid permits completely. So
yeah,
I don't want any like with government shut down and stuff, I just don't want to deal with it right now. I don't want any development opportunities. I don't want anything that goes a long time. Like if I can be in and out in like 30 days or maybe even 6 weeks, that's okay. But you know, 3 weeks is better than 6 right now.
Yeah.
Because the values could start to change too. And I don't want to get drawn out with permits and inspections and crap. So that's, I think, a really good point to make. I appreciate your sharing that.
Hey, Jim.
Yes. Hey, John.
Yeah. One thing that maybe I would like for you to touch on is, you know, we have a lot of friends that have self-directed money just sitting there doing nothing. And many of them have never done a deal yet. So if you were in a position to express that to them, that if the deal is right, it's time to pull the trigger, how would you explain something like that to them? Because you already know, like with the financial friends, we have a lot of people that are sitting there, money sitting in Quincy says that, tons of money sitting there doing nothing. So how do we help them get off of that?
Well, hey, Bob Zachmeyer, can you unmute real quick? Bob is Bob's communication style is simple. That's why I like it. I don't know if he's able to here you go, Bob. So how are you talking to people about opportunities like that these days?
Actually, the stock market did it for me. I mean, they lost a third of their dollars, and I've got people calling out of the woodwork wanting to know about my notes. And I just say, well, my notes haven't lost anything. And even if someone is unable to pay, I can take all the payments, put it at the back of the loan, recast the loan, possibly even collect a origination point when I recast the loan and just let go of the 3 payments. So I'm actually freeing up cash to take advantage of the situation right now. I don't believe there's going to be a tremendous downturn. The difference between the package that was just passed in 2008 is people are actually making more money than they made. All the people on unemployment are making more than they did before. And they aren't going to be destitute. The one thing that I don't see coming back fast is the Airbnbs, just because people have been out of work for how long? How many have extra saved up money and vacation time to go take a vacation right after they go back to work? So I just think there's going to be a lot of really good opportunities on subject to that you can take over somebody's 3.25% loan. And, I just, the people that did that in 08 are multimillionaires, and that was taking over loans at 6%. Just think what it could look like taking over loans in the 3s.
And I see what Dave Pernecki just put. He's in Phoenix, Bob, and he said 300 Airbnbs just went on the market in Phoenix as rentals now for sale. People are walking away from their Airbnbs now.
And I think that's just the start. But we, quite honestly, we are in Tucson, we have 1,050,000 people. And at the end of February, we had 2,200 houses on the market for sale. So that was one house for every 477 people. I mean, we just had such a severe shortage. And this is actually going to be a welcome relief. And I've got a lot of buyers just in the last week. 3 new buyers came out of the woodwork and saying, hey, I want to grab these low interest rates, get a house before, they go, all the competition comes back. And I can get a much better deal right now just because of the virus. And we got a multiple offer on a new property we listed last week. We had a low ball, somebody wanting to pay $145 for a 169 property. And then the next offer that actually helped us because we were able to tell the buyer's agent that we already had one offer and they came in at full price. So that offer helped us leverage the other one higher.
Okay, good point. Thanks for contributing. I really appreciate it. Man, you guys that are on here today really make it a lot easier for me. So I really appreciate you guys greatly. Everybody should be adding value to your network. All of you guys that are contributing are doing that for a lot of people. And the more you give, the more you're going to receive. If you want to get over fear, focus on giving and focus on gratitude right now and helping people, whether it's a neighbor that needs to go get groceries or pick up their pharmaceuticals or somebody at church, being grateful for your family, adjusting to working at home with your kids running around like crazy. All of that's going to help you out. I'm looking for somebody to talk to me about people that are sort of just been getting started over the last, few months or just getting started now in 2020 that are now sort of spinning their wheels and getting really nervous about how to proceed. Who'd like to take that one? Anybody? Ginger, it's good to see you. How are you doing, Ginger? Let's see. All right. Michael J, can I unmute you real quick? Would you mind taking that conversation with me just a little? Here we go. Go ahead. So you've been doing, you and I both started investing like the same time. I'm really grateful for you, Michael J. But so we sort of like started investing at like the period of time before the last downturn, man. What advice would you give somebody for trying to figure out like how can they create money to live on over the next 12 months?
I wouldn't rush to do anything too aggressively in this market because we really haven't seen this. I would want to see some kind of an exit strategy. Knowing just because we're in the game, we had to fill a rental last week. We had a vacancy, just normal turnover,
right.
And we were able to fill it pretty easily. So we still have very short supply on the retail level, but we don't see, government intervention is potentially taking away rights for us to, either liquidate our property at the retail level, potentially even at the wholesale level. And possibly even get our houses shown to fill them as a rental. So, I mean, sometimes the best deal you're going to do is not doing a deal. And, you know, if this is your first deal, I would just kind of hold off, and I'd get on Zoom calls like this, and I would see what other people are doing. You know, I run a local meetup group, and we're doing Zoom meetings. A lot of meetups and RIAs are doing Zoom meetings. I'd see what's working. I mean, I would look for opportunities where other people are trying to jump ship. Like we just brought up Airbnbs. You know, a lot of people bought Airbnbs on the premise of it only made sense if I can Airbnb it. They didn't have a plan B, but maybe you get somebody that's panicking, and you can actually take a property that was an Airbnb, and if you can buy it at the right price, you might be able to do a straight up rent because there is demand for rental properties.
There is. Right.
I mean, me looking at the market right now, man, I don't know. I mean, I think you either want to be in a Section 8 style rental where the government's flipping the check for the rent, or you want to be in a David Tilney style tenant, which is you know, a financially stable tenant on an A and B class asset, you know, where they're stable and they do value paying the rent on time. Anything in the middle scares me. I mean, that scares me a lot. But you know, I had notes I wrote myself after the last downturn were, don't be so aggressive, you know, buy better assets in better neighborhoods and rent to straight tenants. You know, look for the assets that have the biggest springboard. You know, there were certain assets that we were buying, you know, anything that you could buy below builder price, meaning the cheapest thing a builder can sell in your market, had the biggest spring factor in my local market. So, you know, houses I was buying in 09 and 10 and 11 in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, those are 240 houses now. You know, whereas the house I bought in the middle of the market, which seemed the safer bet, they went up. They just didn't go up at the same rate that the entry level price point stuff did in my particular market. So the farther, you know, we don't have row homes in Colorado Springs. We don't have 1%ers.
It's different than my market. You find the
yeah, it's very different.
This is totally different, right?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, you know, we're in this weird market where it's not Southern California, but it's definitely not you know, Richmond either.
Right.
You know, that 240 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car is probably a $1,300 rental.
Right.
So, you know, make that work. So you gotta figure out what game plan is going to work in your local market based on the kind of fruit that you got on the trees there. So,
gosh, that was really powerful what you shared about reading back through your old notes, and reminds me of, like, I remember Peter Fortunato saying this, Michael, that he's like, real estate is a thinking game, not a running game. Do you remember him saying that?
Many, many, many times. And I would also add this. I just saw Pete a couple of times here recently. He taught with John, and I think he was at the Masters. They, you know, I've never heard him say this before, or I was zoned out when he did, but he's like, I don't believe in market cycles. Because he doesn't intend to ever sell the asset.
Right.
So he looks at it purely from a cash flow model. And I would say kind of similar to that with myself. I'm just committed to buy three sub-2 deals. And and I'm also just said that the smorgasbord hadn't started yet. But I look at it purely from a what will it rent for, and what's my debt service, and what's the spread in there.
What will the house afford, right?
Yeah, what can the house afford? And you know, I thought back in 06, man, I'm taking over 5 and 6% loans. I'm like, man, it's never going to get any better than this. And I was wrong, you know, and I still have some of those loans, but the tenants can still afford them, you know, because the loans paid down. Now we're taking over stuff. It's the same thin margin in the sub-2 business, but they're just 3.5% loans, or low 3% or low fours, but they still make sense at the end of the month or they don't. If that makes sense.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. Now,
I'll give you one example because it really kind of illustrates my perspective. I bought a house in the south end of town in Fountain, and I bought it in June-ish of 2007. And I bought it sub 2, so I mean there was no equity. Probably couldn't have bought it any worse from a timing perspective, but we rented that property out for 10, 11 years. And buying it at the absolute worst time in the market, and then we had a tenant that got divorced, got a new husband, turned into a pet hoarder. I mean, you couldn't make it up any worse than this.
It's
so
real life.
Yeah, we had to renovate the house when we got it back.
Yeah.
We still walked away with 126 grand and just under 70,000 in net rents. So, time cures all wounds, assuming you can hold the asset long enough. And again, it all goes back to, can a tenant afford this asset? If you can find a good deal that makes sense to a tenant, and you can find people that have lazy IRA money if you need any. But I mean, the bulk of my sub 2s, I just took over the payments and paid the closing costs. So you don't need a lot of money. You just need management skills.
And time.
And I wouldn't take the management skills lightly. That's a very important piece of the puzzle.
I agree on all of that. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And somebody wanted to unmute. So if you want to unmute and talk to me, or if you have a question for the whole group, then go ahead and unmute and let's talk about it, guys. Brian, thanks for your comments. Sunitha, you've had some really great comments I've noticed. Thank you. Bill, thanks. Go ahead.
Hi. You had asked for newbies who were just getting started when all of this went down. I'm going to walk inside so you don't get all my wind noise.
It's like a beautiful day.
It is. It's fantastic. That's why I was sitting outside. I'm in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Richmond with you.
Oh, you're in my town. Yeah, I'm looking outside. I mean, I'm watching the birds on the bird feeder,
It's fantastic. So, but I'm working with Joyce Sims, and she and I were just getting started. We were looking at fix and flips. We literally were on our first one and decided that the numbers didn't work, thankfully, just when this all came down. And so we've backed up.
Oops, are you still there?
For agents.
Good.
And so I've been building out financial slide decks for, how to financially survive the coronavirus, how to avoid foreclosure, how to age in place at home, that sort of thing. And I've been using the time to educate myself about some of the stuff that you guys have been talking about. Like, no idea what notes are, but I'm going to go figure it out now. And using that time to build my mailing lists. So, for potential buyers and sellers by doing these webinars and getting people to opt in for more information later. So that's really, it's basically, I'm just prepping so that the day that we can get out again, I'm ready to bang and move forward.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, and Dave Fernecki, if you're able to unmute, I'll take you as my last guest here because I do have to cut this off pretty soon. But you've been making great comments all the way through, and you've got a lot of experience. So,
hey Jim.
Yay, how are you?
Good. Yeah, I
mentioned. Yeah, your last comment was options. Options are good in every market, right?
Right, but I think now too, especially. Okay, is the market going to drop? We don't know. It could. It might not.
Who knows?
Some of the flippers here are assuming it's going to drop 20 points. It may not. But an option prevents your risk factor. It limits your risk factor. So I just think that might be a great strategy. I just want to open it up for conversation with some of the other seasoned folks that are on here.
That's a good point. And, people get confused about how to use options. Could you give them a couple of quick tips on?
Well, you find a property you like. Okay, I'd like to save my space or reserve my spot. Give you a few $100 now, and I'll buy it for X price down the road. Or I was having a conversation before this, say, okay, I might buy your property. I'd like to buy your property in a year based upon maybe what let's use the assessed value as a benchmark to go up or down. It's just a reservation, and you don't get caught catching a falling knife.
Mm-hmm. You know, options are powerful because they give you the right to buy, but not the obligation to buy.
Right.
Think about how powerful that is from a leverage standpoint on assets.
It's all about limited exposure. I mean, we've all been caught by the downside in the past markets, and you have scars from that. So, okay, so what do you do so you don't get caught again? You know, Michael Jake's comment, Michael and I met back at, probably doesn't remember, at Jack Miller's back in 2007. Do you remember that, Mike? We sat down? Yeah.
That's awesome. Jack.
Yeah. So, but again, it's the subject twos. I just think that's probably the best strategy out there.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Colby has had a series of webinars over the last week with maybe 20 flippers from around the country, and what they're changing their strategies. They're using a lower buy price. They're also finding that sellers who said no 4 or 5 months ago are coming back begging them to talk again. And the first question is, why? Why do you want to talk now? What's different? More specifically, would you do seller finance now? So it's just another form of an option in its own way. You have no risk.
Amen to that. Like Justin, I think, was talking earlier about following up with, you know, all the wholesale inventory that's coming out. Not only could you possibly buy it if they can't close it, but you could probably buy it with terms.
Yeah.
And in the last downturn, I mean, I kind of coined a phrase, a risk-free lease option, where I wouldn't commit to a payment until I found somebody that would pay me. And that would be a good way to not just think in the quick buck, but can you tie up a good asset in a good part of town without any risk? Because you don't know how long it's going to take you to where you can even show the thing or find a tenant. But you know, you're probably more of an expert than the person that's trying to dump the property now. So if you can tie it up without having to commit to payments until you find a good tenant, then that's a good way to use an option and go long on a deal.
Well, you're hedging your bets. I mean, what you're playing both ends of the spectrum, so why not? It's all about risk management right now, I think.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, I would never be talking to you two at the same time if it wasn't for this. You know what I mean?
I mean, Jim, it's been what, 3 years since the last cruise that we talked?
Yeah, but it's good to catch up with both of you, and to hear you guys interact together is powerful stuff you guys are sharing. So thank you. And I know you guys are both givers, but it really does help. Somebody else wanted to unmute and talk about vacation rentals. So I don't remember who that was, but you're welcome to unmute, and we can do that. Let's see. Okay. Was it Kellyanne? Oh, it's Joyce. Hey, Joyce, how are you? But there we go. If somebody's got something you want to discuss, you can just unmute yourself, and I can take like 1 or 2 more. It's 1 o'clock.
Hi, this is Sandra De Montano.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, how are you?
Excellent. Okay, hi. It's Sandra. I'm in Las Vegas. I'm a corporate housing provider. It's a little bit different than what you guys are talking about, but COVID-19 has impacted our business because we service individuals that are relocating to Las Vegas or are here or are sent here for short-term job assignments. So we've had to shift our focus to locals because we've had a number of people just up and leave in the middle of the night. I mention this because for those who are doing Airbnb, you can change your focus from individuals coming from out of state, out of country, to traveling nurses, if your town is a hotspot of activity, and medical professionals. So we're calling senior care homes, we're calling hospitals, the police department, fire department. We placed 2 doctors last Sunday and we're hoping to get more. There's a website called furnishedfinder.com.
I love that website.
Yeah, it's a paid subscription thing, but it's Furnished Finder. That's not plural; it's singular. And then, secondly, what we're doing, because we're all at home, my son and I did go on that financial friends cruise in January, and we were lining up our IRA monies, our self-directed IRA monies, to make our first investment, which we have paused on now because we believe there are better opportunities later. But in the meantime, we're day trading and in and out, 2 minutes, make $20, $50 here. So we average about $250 a day just doing day trading, just in and out. So that's another option for you guys are all sitting at home and waiting for the market to turn.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay, and I think it's good if you guys got short-term rentals, Airbnb. I think there's some things you could do. And Leah, I don't know if you're on still or not, but you could unmute. But Leah's had some really good ideas. You can increase your discount for longer-term stays. I've done that for 30 days and 1 week at a time. Just increase that discount point. I think it's a good time to cast a wider net and go after travel nurses. I've been working with for almost 2 years. They're like some of my favorite people, especially now. I have so much gratitude for anybody working medical anyways. Great tenants. I've never had an issue. So furnishedfinders.com for that. And also they've got a Facebook group. They've got a Facebook group called Gypsy Housing. Here, I'll show you guys real quick. You want to see it? Make sure I get this right. Let's see. Anyone else doing travel nurse? No. So it's been really good for me. They're very cost, they're on a budget. So you got to keep that in mind. So for me, like travel nurses work good when I have really small space. They don't mind small spaces. Here it is. Here's one of them. There's this one right here called Travel Nurse Housing Furnish Finder. There's on Facebook, Gypsy Soul Travel Housing Options. There's another one here called Travel Nurse Housing, Travel Nursing. So just type in like Travel Nurse into Facebook and you can do it, go into that way. By the way, I'm going to show you guys my Facebook group here while I'm thinking about it because I'd like, we could continue some of these conversations. Many of you guys are in this. But it's just called Real Estate Investor Success. It's very simple. Stop in.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you, this is Sarah Rose. Can you paste the link for it in the chat?
I did, but I'll do it again.
Okay, excellent.
How are you?
Thank you.
Where are you and what do you do?
I'm in Florida. I'm one of those newbies, but I do know that I want to begin in the note space. I've done a lot of research, reading, listening to podcasts, you name it.
Awesome.
And
what
so
podcasts do you like?
Oh, I'm not listening to any of those now. I'm now in the networking space. I'm out in Florida, actually has a very rural area. So I had a belief that, it's so hard to network. I got to go 45 minutes each way, which is true, minimum. And I couldn't find any in Gainesville, but I have recently. I'm just saying now that everything's moved, I'm 100% virtual as it is for income. So yeah, so I want to get started in those.
It's always a good time to have virtual assistance too. All right, well, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Joyce, good to see you. Thanks for your things. Ron Biggs, I didn't know you were on here, but it's good to see you. Thomas is on the move. We've got to close things up, but was this helpful? Would you guys want to do this again in maybe 10 or 12 days? Lord knows what's going to change in the next 2 weeks. I can't even freaking imagine how fast things are changing. Okay, you all want to do this again? All right. What really made this beneficial to me was having people that could contribute. There are some really awesome people on this call today. So everybody who contributed is great. It's really good. Thank you. And it's really good to hang out with some friends. Like I can't see John Morey, Michael Jake, Justin Morales. Dude, it's good to catch up. Ken and Ginger and so many of you guys, Mary Hart and others, Micah Toronto. It's good to finally like see you in person. So it's been good for me that way as well, to catch up with so many of you guys. I'll set something up again for like 10 days out. Be thinking about where your questions are. You can join me in that Facebook group and post questions and let me know how today went for you guys. Be thinking about the problem that you solve and how you're going to solve it. Focus on that. Focus on your mindset. Stop watching the news and start reading more, listening to books, podcasts. Hanging out with like-minded people like this really helps a lot. Now more than ever, your mindset is critical because everything is so negative out there. All right, guys, great opportunities coming up, and I appreciate you guys.
Right now, and I can't remember streaming on
See you guys later. Bye-bye.
People piling into our